It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday. Layla had cooked, cleaned, and set the table with quiet care. She even wore the dress Chris liked, blue, soft, respectful. His family was coming over. She wanted to show effort, respect. Again, they all arrived loud and full of judgment, like always. Margaret, Chris's mother, walked in first, scanning the house with eyes that always found something wrong. She looked at Layla and muttered, "Still no children. What a waste of a marriage." Layla ignored it. She had trained herself to. Chris heard it, but as usual, said nothing. Dinner started awkward, conversations that felt more like traps. Margaret poked at Layla's job, her looks, her background. She called her too ambitious for a wife. Layla smiled through it all, until Margaret said, loud enough for everyone, "You don't belong in this family. You tricked my son. You're not one of us." Layla finally spoke, calm, steady, but tired. "You don't have to like me, Margaret, but you will respect me." It happened so fast. Margaret stood up and slapped her across the face. A heavy silence dropped over the table. Layla's cheek burned. Her body froze, but her mind didn't. She slowly turned to look at her husband. Chris just sat there, frozen, not angry, not shocked, just empty. He didn't speak, didn't stand, didn't even flinch. His silence was louder than the slap. Layla's eyes welled, not from pain, but from the deepest kind of hurt, the kind that breaks something inside. She waited, just a second longer, hoping he would say something, defend her, choose her. He didn't. She stood up slowly, straightened her dress, and said nothing. Margaret laughed. "Oh, now you're quiet. Maybe you should have been quiet before." Layla looked around the room. Everyone avoided her eyes. Cowards. She turned to Chris one last time. Her voice was low, steady. "This is the moment I'll remember for the rest of my life." And she walked out. Nobody followed. Layla grew up in a small 2-bedroom apartment with her mother and 2 younger brothers. Her father left when she was 9, and he never came back. Since then, Layla had to grow up fast. Her mother worked 2 jobs as a nurse, so Layla became the one who took care of everything at home. She cooked, cleaned, and helped her brothers with school. She didn't have time for fun or mistakes. She learned early that life was not easy, and no one was coming to save her. She worked hard in school, got a scholarship, and made it to college. That's where she met Chris. He was quiet, kind, and always polite. He listened when she spoke, and made her feel important. With him, she didn't have to be strong all the time. She felt safe. He made her laugh. For the first time in her life, she felt like someone saw her. Chris came from a rich family. His father was a retired judge, respected in their town. His mother, Margaret, owned a chain of private schools. They lived in a big house, went to expensive events, and cared a lot about their name. From the beginning, Margaret didn't like Layla. She thought Layla was too loud, too ambitious, and not the kind of woman her son should marry. Layla tried hard to win her over. She dressed modestly, always offered to help, stayed quiet during arguments, and smiled when Margaret made rude comments. She thought that with time, things would get better, but they didn't. Chris didn't always defend her. At first, he told her to give his mother time. Then, he said she should just ignore it. Eventually, he said nothing at all. After they got married, Layla gave up her full-time job to focus on the marriage. Margaret said it was better that way, that a real wife should take care of the home. Chris agreed. Layla felt like she had to choose, keep her career or keep her peace. She chose peace, but she never truly got it. The house she moved into was big and beautiful, but it never felt like home. Margaret visited often, always unannounced. She would comment on everything, how Layla cooked, how she looked, even how she spoke. Chris never stopped her. He would just say, "That's just how my mum is." Layla started to feel invisible. She missed working. She missed being around people who respected her. She missed feeling like herself. She tried to talk to Chris about how unhappy she was, but he always said, "Let's not start this again," or "You're just overthinking." Still, Layla held on. She remembered where she came from, how hard she had worked to build this life. She didn't want to throw it away. She believed marriage was about fighting together, not running away. So she stayed. She tried, but the little things added up. Margaret's rude comments turned into loud insults. Chris's silence turned into distance. Some days it felt like Layla lived in that house alone. She stopped inviting friends over. She stopped dressing up. She felt small in her own skin. Her only moments of peace were late at night, when the house was quiet, and she could hear herself think. She had dreams once, starting her own business, helping women like her, maybe even writing a book, but those dreams felt far away now, buried under all the things she had to give up. Chris wasn't cruel, but he wasn't kind anymore either. He was there, but he wasn't with her. She missed the way he used to hold her, talk to her, fight for her. Now, it felt like he was always choosing his mother over her. Layla often asked herself if love was supposed to feel like. Was marriage really just about surviving each day? Was this what she worked so hard? She started writing in a journal again, little thoughts, frustrations, things she couldn't say out loud. It helped, but not enough. Then the family meeting was called. Margaret said she wanted to make peace, to talk things through. Chris asked Layla to go. He said, "Just show them you're willing to work on things." Layla agreed. She hoped maybe, just maybe, things could change. She got dressed that morning with care. She did her hair, put on makeup, and wore the blue dress Chris liked. She told herself to stay calm, to listen, more than speak, to be the bigger person. But deep down, she was tired. Tired of trying, tired of pretending, tired of being the only one fighting. She walked into that family meeting with hope, small, quiet hope. But even that didn't survive the slap. It had been 2 days since the slap, but the silence in the house was louder than ever. Layla didn't speak to Chris, not even to ask if he wanted coffee. She moved around the house quietly, doing only what was needed. Chris noticed, but he didn't know what to say. He thought maybe things would go back to normal if he waited long enough. That's how it always worked before, but this time felt different. Layla didn't look at him the same way. Her eyes weren't angry, they were empty. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just looked like someone who had already made a decision. On the third evening, Chris walked into the bedroom and saw her packing a small bag. She folded her clothes neatly and placed them in silence. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I need some space," she said, without looking up. He stepped closer. "Layla, come on, don't do this. My mom, she slapped me, in front of your entire family, and you did nothing." She was upset. She didn't mean it. Layla turned to him. Her face was calm, but her voice was sharp. "Don't make excuses for her. She meant it, and you let her." Chris sighed. "What was I supposed to do? 'Cause a bigger scene? She's my mum, and I'm your wife," she said. "Or did you forget that?" He looked away. Layla zipped her bag and put it on the floor. "It wasn't just the slap. It was the years of disrespect, the way she talks to me, the way she treats me like I'm nothing, and the way you always stand by and let it happen." "I didn't know what to say," he muttered. "You don't have to say anything." Your silence was loud enough. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. She wasn't embarrassed anymore. She was done hiding how much it hurt. "I gave up everything for this marriage," she said. "I gave up my job, my voice, my peace. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would get better, but they didn't. And now I don't even recognize myself." Chris's face dropped. "So what? You're leaving? Just like that?" "Number, I'm choosing myself." Finally, she grabbed her keys, walked past him, and left. Layla went to stay with her best friend Nina. As soon as Nina opened the door and saw the look on her face, she knew something was wrong. "What happened?" Nina asked. "She slapped me, and he just sat there." Nina didn't need to ask who she was. Margaret had always looked down on Layla. She never saw her as good enough, and Chris never protected her. Layla sat on Nina's couch that night, holding a cup of tea in her hands. She felt like a stranger in her own skin, but for the first time in a long time, she also felt something else: relief. The next morning, she got a text from Chris. "I'm sorry, can we talk?" She stared at the message for a long time but didn't reply. Later, her phone rang. It was Margaret. "You should be ashamed of yourself," Margaret snapped. "You're breaking my son's heart." Layla didn't say a word. She simply ended the call. She spent the day in silence, thinking. She replayed the scene over and over in her mind. The slap, the way everyone at the table froze, the way Chris didn't even look at her. That moment had changed something inside her. It woke her up. That night, Nina brought her dinner and sat with her on the couch. "Are you going back?" Nina asked gently. Layla shook her head. "Not unless something changes." "Do you think it will?" Layla didn't answer. She didn't want to hope. The next afternoon, Chris showed up at Nina's place. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He knocked, and when Layla opened the door, he said, "Can we talk?" She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "I messed up," Chris began. "I should have said something. I should have defended you. I was scared of my mum, of upsetting the family. But that's no excuse. I've been weak." Layla crossed her arms. "Why now? Why not that night?" "Because I didn't realize how much damage I was doing. Until you left." Layla looked at him for a long time. Chris, I begged you for years to stand up for me. I gave you chance after chance. And you never did. I know, he said quietly. I want to do better. I'm willing to try. Then tell your mother she was wrong. He looked down at the ground. That's hard. And being your wife hasn't been, she replied. There was a long pause. Chris didn't have an answer. I'm not asking for gifts. I'm asking for respect, Layla said. And if that's too hard, then I know what I need to do. She turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind her. She didn't know what Chris would do next, but for the first time, she wasn't waiting to find out. Something inside her had changed. She had stopped begging. She had started choosing herself. That moment, that slap, had broken the silence she'd lived in for too long. And now, she was finally listening to her own voice. Layla didn't return home. Days turned into a week, and she stayed with Nina. The small guest room felt warmer than the big house she had left behind. She started to sleep better. She ate when she was hungry, and sometimes even laughed with Nina. But deep inside, there was still pain. Pain that didn't leave with the house. Chris kept calling and sending messages. He said he missed her. He said he was sorry. He begged for another chance. But none of his words changed the past. Layla didn't want empty promises. She needed proof, real action, not just talk. Then one day Chris asked to meet in person. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. I've talked to my mum, he said. I told her what she did was wrong. Layla looked at him. What did she say? Chris hesitated. She didn't take it well. She said, you're trying to pull me away from my family. Layla shook her head. That's not what this is about. I never asked you to choose between us. I asked you to protect me. Chris reached for her hand. I want to fix this. Then listen. Not just now, but always. Stand up when it matters. Not just when it's safe. Chris nodded. He promised he would do better. He asked her to come home. Layla thought about it for a moment. She missed her own bed. She missed her books, her quiet space. But she wasn't sure if things had truly changed. She agreed to go back for 1 week, a trial. She made it clear. If I feel unsafe, unheard or unwanted again, I leave. When she returned, the house felt the same. Too quiet, too large. Margaret didn't call or visit, which Layla hoped meant progress. But the silence felt fake, like everyone was pretending. A few days later, Layla found out the truth. She walked into Chris's office to get a pen. She wasn't snooping. She just opened the drawer where he kept his things. Inside, she found a printed letter. Her name was on it. She picked it up and started reading. It was a legal draft for a restraining order against her. It said she was emotionally unstable and a threat to the family. The letter was signed by Margaret. But at the bottom, it said it was being reviewed by a lawyer, Chris's lawyer. Layla sat down, shaking. Her heart pounded in her ears. She read the letter again, hoping she had misunderstood. But the words didn't change. That night, when Chris came home, she held the letter out. What is this? He froze. Where did you find that? In your drawer. Chris ran his hand through his hair. It's not what it looks like. Then explain, she said quietly. My mom, she wanted to scare you. She said you were destroying the family image. She asked my lawyer to draft something just in case. And you didn't stop her. I didn't sign anything. I never planned to use it. Layla felt cold. But you knew. You let her plan to paint me as crazy. You let her treat me like a threat. I was trying to keep the peace, Chris said. I thought if I kept her calm, she wouldn't take it further. You protected her, Layla said. Again, Chris looked down. I didn't know what else to do. Layla didn't cry this time. She didn't scream. She just nodded. This isn't a home. This is a battlefield. She moved back into the guest room that night. The next morning, she made a call to a lawyer of her own. Days passed, and the atmosphere at home grew colder. Chris avoided her. He knew he had crossed a line he couldn't take back. Layla spoke less and less. She cooked her own meals, took walks alone, and avoided any space Chris was in. Then Margaret showed up. She walked in like nothing had happened, holding a tray of food. I heard you've been sick, she said, smiling fake. Layla didn't answer. Margaret sat on the couch. Look, I know we've had our issues, but I'm willing to start over. Layla turned slowly. You tried to label me unstable and dangerous. Margaret rolled her eyes. That was just a precaution. You were acting emotional. Layla stood up. Get out of my house. This is my son's house, Margaret replied. Layla stepped closer. Not for long. Margaret's smile dropped. Layla didn't argue. She just walked to her room and closed the door. Later that night, Chris knocked. You need to calm down, he said. I'm calm, Layla said. That's the difference. I'm not shouting. I'm deciding. He looked confused. I'm filing for divorce, she said. His face went pale. What? You're just walking away? You gave me no choice. You let her attack me in every way, and you never once made me feel safe. Chris sat down on the floor. You were my peace, Layla. Without you, the house is just noise. You should have protected your peace, she said. But you gave it away. She closed her door. The next morning, she packed again. But this time, she didn't cry. Nina picked her up, and as they drove away, Layla looked back one last time. She wasn't angry anymore. She was clear. She had begged for love, for safety, for respect, and all she got was silence. Now, 2 weeks after Layla filed for divorce, the family called for a dinner. Margaret said it was about peace and moving forward. Chris begged Layla to come. He said, "Please, just show them you're not the enemy." Layla thought about it. Then she agreed. But this time, she didn't go to be accepted. She went to be heard. She wore a simple black dress. No makeup, no smile. She walked into the house like someone who had nothing left to lose. Everyone was there. Margaret, Chris, his cousins, even his uncle from out of town. They were all seated, looking tense. Margaret stood and smiled like a queen hosting a show. "I just want to thank everyone for coming," she said. "I believe we all want peace, especially for my son who's been through so much." Layla sat quietly. Her hands were calm, her eyes sharp. Margaret continued, "Marriage is hard, but women today give up too easily. My son needs a wife who knows how to stay strong and silent during hard times." Chris looked down. Layla slowly stood up. "I agree," she said. "Marriage is hard, especially when one person is fighting alone." Margaret chuckled. "Oh, please, you've been nothing but trouble since day one." Layla reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "This is an email sent from your personal address to a lawyer, asking about filing a restraining order against me." Everyone at the table looked confused. Margaret's smile disappeared. Layla walked around the table, placing a copy in front of each person. The room went silent as papers were read. "Here," Layla pointed. "You said I was mentally unstable, that I was a threat to the family name." Chris looked shocked. "You sent this?" Margaret stood. "I was protecting my son. You were making him weak." Layla turned to Chris. "And you knew. You didn't stop her." Chris opened his mouth but couldn't speak. Layla kept going. "You didn't protect me when she slapped me. You didn't protect me when she lied about me. And when she tried to destroy my name, you said nothing." Margaret screamed, "You're turning him against me." "No," Layla said. "You did that yourself." Chris stood up. "Mum, enough." Everyone froze. Chris looked around the table. "I've been silent for too long, but Layla's right. I didn't protect her. I failed her, and I let all of you believe it was okay to treat her like this." Margaret gasped. "After all I've done for you." Chris faced her. "That's the problem. You think love is control, but I'm done choosing fear over respect." Layla looked at him, shocked. For the first time, he wasn't hiding behind his mother. "I'm sorry," he told her. "I can't undo what I let happen, but I won't be silent anymore." Margaret tried to speak again, but Chris stopped her. "You're not the victim here." Layla stood still. Her heart was racing, but she didn't show it. She turned to the room. "I'm not staying married. That choice is already made, but I won't walk away quietly." Then she looked straight at Margaret. "You slapped me because you thought I would stay silent. You lied because you thought I had no power, but I do. And tonight, everyone sees who you really are." Margaret sat down, shaking with anger. Layla picked up her bag. "I was never weak," she said. "I was just hoping someone would be brave enough to stand with me." Chris whispered, "I'm sorry I wasn't." Layla nodded. "You were too late, but thank you for finally speaking." She walked to the door. As she opened it, she paused. Sometimes, the strongest thing a woman can do is leave the room with her head held high. And she did. Layla didn't cry when she got home that night. She didn't scream either. She just sat on her bed, feeling quiet, like something heavy had finally been lifted off her chest. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't scared of what people would say. She didn't care about what the family thought. She had spoken her truth, and they had heard it, loud and clear. The next morning, Layla went to her lawyer and finalized the divorce papers. Chris had already agreed to sign. He didn't fight her. He didn't beg her to stay this time. Maybe deep down, he knew he didn't deserve her anymore. A week later, Layla moved out of the house they once shared. She found a small apartment not far from her work. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers, a space with peace. No tension in the walls, no eyes watching her every move, No slaps waiting for her behind fake smiles. She bought new sheets, cooked her own meals, and slept through the night for the first time in months. Some days were hard. She missed the idea of love, the hope she used to carry, but she didn't miss the pain. She focused on her work. Her boss noticed the change in her. "You've got your fire back," he said one day. Layla smiled. She did feel stronger, not loud or proud, just steady. People started reaching out. One of Chris's cousins, Tina, sent her a message. "You were right," she wrote. "I should have said something. I'm sorry I didn't." Layla didn't hold it against her. She knew silence wasn't always weakness. Sometimes it was fear. But Layla had broken that fear, and others were starting to follow. One evening, Layla visited her mother. They sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Her mum held her hand. "You look free," she said softly. "I am," Layla answered. "I'm proud of you." Layla's eyes filled with tears. That was the first time someone said they were proud of her since everything happened. A few months later, Layla started volunteering at a women's center. She helped others going through similar pain, women who were afraid to speak, afraid to leave. She told them, "It's not about being perfect. It's about knowing when to walk away." She didn't speak with Chris anymore. He sent her a message once, saying he had started therapy. He said he was trying to understand himself and the damage he allowed. Layla wished him well. She didn't want revenge. She wanted healing, for both of them. As for Margaret, the family started seeing her differently. People whispered. Some avoided her. A few even told her to her face that she was wrong. Her control was slipping, and she knew it. But Layla didn't waste time thinking about her anymore. One day, Layla got a job offer in another city. A better salary, a fresh start. She took it. She packed her things, said goodbye to the old streets, and moved into a new life. In her new apartment, on the first night, she lit a candle and stood by the window. The city lights blinked below. She felt a soft ache inside her. Not sadness, but a kind of quiet strength. She whispered to herself, "I made it." Not because she left a man, not because she won an argument, but because she found her voice and chose herself, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. She was no longer the woman who stayed silent at family dinners. She was no longer the wife who accepted disrespect for the sake of peace. She was Layla, strong, free, whole, and that was enough. One quiet evening, Layla came home from work, tired but peaceful. She unlocked the door to her apartment, took off her shoes, and dropped her bag on the floor. The place smelled like vanilla from the candle she lit that morning. The soft music playing in the background made the room feel warm. She sat on the couch with a cup of tea in her hand, staring out the window at the city lights. There was no noise, no stress, no walking on eggshells, just peace. She reached for the mail and found a small envelope with no name, just her address. Inside was a handwritten note. It was from Chris. "I told her no today, for the first time in my life. I told her she was wrong. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I needed you to know. I'm working on myself. You were right about everything. I hope you're happy. You deserve peace." Layla read it twice, then folded the paper slowly. She didn't cry. She didn't feel angry. She just smiled, a small, quiet smile. He was late, but maybe finally he understood. She stood up, walked to the window, and whispered to herself, "I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I walked away. And that was the loudest thing I've ever done." And in that still, peaceful moment, she knew she had already won.